Amina, a loving wife from Mbale, Uganda, had spent 7 years building a beautiful life with her husband Kweku. She trusted him deeply. He was a successful man, always travelling for business, and she stood by him through it all. One evening, he returned from yet another trip, this time from Accra. Everything seemed normal. He smiled, kissed her on the cheek, and said he missed her. But there was one strange thing. He wouldn't let her touch his suitcase. He held it close, like it was something precious. Amina felt a strange feeling in her chest, but she stayed calm. That night, as Kweku took a shower, her curiosity got the best of her. She quietly walked over to the suitcase, unzipped it, and what she saw made her legs give out. Neatly folded beside his work clothes was a small velvet box. Her heart jumped. Was it a surprise gift? Maybe a ring? But when she opened the box, her heart broke. Inside was a ring, but it wasn't for her. It was engraved with the words, "To Adora, the love of my real life." Beneath it was a sonogram with the words, "Baby Kweku Jr." written on the back. Amina stared at the little velvet box sitting quietly beside Kweku's neatly folded work shirts. Her heart started to pound. Maybe it was a gift, she thought. Maybe it was something special he brought back for her. For a moment, she even smiled, thinking perhaps after all these years, Kweku had planned a surprise. Her fingers trembled as she opened the box, expecting something romantic, a ring, maybe a note. But the second she saw what was inside, her smile disappeared. It was a ring, yes, but not for her. Her eyes locked on the words engraved on the inside of the band, "To Adora, the love of my real life." Amina blinked hard, hoping she was imagining it, but the letters were clear, permanent, painful. "Adora," she whispered aloud. That wasn't her name. Who was Adora? And then she saw something underneath the box. A piece of paper? No, a photo. She picked it up slowly, already feeling like the air had left the room. It was a sonogram, a baby, and written in messy handwriting on the back were 3 simple words that shattered her world. Baby Kweku Jr. Amina couldn't breathe. Her legs gave way, and she sat down on the floor, clutching the sonogram like it was burning her fingers. Her vision blurred with tears, and her body shook. She wasn't just being cheated on. No, this was much deeper, much worse. This wasn't just an affair. This was a second life, a secret woman, a secret child. Her husband, the man she had shared 7 years of love, struggle, and dreams with, had another woman he loved, another family he had created behind her back. And the worst part? He had been living this double life while pretending to be a faithful husband to her. Thoughts rushed through her head all at once. Was this why he was always travelling? Were those business trips really business at all? Was Adora in Accra? How long had this been going on? Amina felt a storm inside her, but on the outside, she was still, numb, silent, broken. She wiped her face slowly, took a deep breath, and did something she never thought she would do. She took out her phone and snapped clear pictures of everything: the ring, the engraving, the sonogram. She knew she had to stay calm. She couldn't let him know she had found out. Not yet. She zipped the suitcase back up carefully and placed everything exactly as she had found it. When Kweku came out of the shower, she smiled. She acted normal. She even asked him how his trip was. He gave the same fake stories. She nodded and listened like she always did. But inside, her heart was no longer his. Something inside her had changed forever. That night, while he slept peacefully beside her, Amina stared at the ceiling, wide awake, planning her next move. She was not going to cry forever. She would not be the quiet, heartbroken wife who suffered in silence. She needed the truth. She needed answers, and she needed a plan. The next day, Amina did something bold. She created a fake identity, just a name and a number. She called Adora, pretending to be a hotel worker who had found the ring Kweku had forgotten. What she heard on that call shattered her even more. Adora had no idea about Amina. None. In fact, she believed Kweku was single. He had told her he was in the middle of ending things with a distant cousin he grew up with. Cousin? Amina nearly choked. That's what he had called her. His wife of 7 years, his cousin. Adora spoke freely. She said Kweku had promised to marry her soon. She said he had cried tears of joy when he saw the baby's heartbeat on the screen. She said he wanted to name the baby after himself, Kweku Jr. Amina listened quietly, saying almost nothing. When the call ended, she sat for a long time in complete silence. Now she knew everything. He wasn't just unfaithful, he was a liar, a manipulator, a man who had played with 2 women's lives like it was a game. But Amina was not going to let him win. She didn't scream. She didn't confront him right away. She played her part. She smiled at dinner. She kissed him goodbye before work. But inside, she was preparing for a storm. She would not be the victim. She would take control. One lie had opened a door to the truth. And Amina, she was walking right through it quietly, powerfully, and with a plan he would never see coming. The woman who found pain inside a suitcase was no longer just a wife. She was now something else, stronger, smarter, ready. And this was only the beginning. Amina sat in silence, holding the sonogram and the ring, her heart breaking into 1,000 tiny pieces. But even in that moment of deep pain, her mind was sharp. She wasn't just a wife crying over betrayal. She was a woman waking up to a harsh truth. She wiped her tears, stood up slowly, and carefully placed everything back the way she found it. She folded Kweku's shirts neatly. She closed the velvet box. She zipped the suitcase and put it exactly where it had been. Then she walked back into the bedroom and climbed into bed beside the man who had just destroyed her world. She said nothing. She didn't scream, didn't fight, didn't even cry out loud. She had a plan. The next morning, she smiled as usual, cooked breakfast, and asked Kweku how he slept. He kissed her on the forehead like nothing had changed, and she smiled back, even though her heart was bleeding. For the next 7 days, Amina acted like everything was fine. She laughed at his jokes. She asked about his work. She even helped him iron his shirts. But in secret, she was collecting evidence. She had already taken clear photos of the ring, the engraving, and the sonogram. Every day, when Kweku left for work, she sat quietly and stared at the pictures on her phone, reminding herself of what she had to do. She knew the woman's name now, Adora. It was carved into that ring forever. Amina started searching online, Facebook, Instagram, anything. But there were too many Adoras. So she decided to take a bold step. She bought a cheap SIM card, created a new number, and called Adora directly. She disguised her voice slightly and introduced herself as a hotel worker. She said she had found a ring in one of the rooms in Accra, and the engraving had her name on it. "I think it belongs to you," she said kindly. There was a pause on the line. Then Adora laughed softly. "Oh my God, yes, that must be mine. My fiancé must have left it by mistake," she said. Amina's hand tightened around the phone. "Fiancé?" She bit her lip and kept her voice calm. "Could I ask who he is, just to confirm?" Adora responded without hesitation. Kweku Mensah. He was staying there just last week." Amina's stomach twisted, but she didn't let it show. She kept the call going, letting Adora talk, and what she heard next shocked her to the core. Adora said she and Kweku had been together for over 2 years. She said he had promised her marriage and even told her he was ready to start a family. She was excited about the baby he named after himself. But what stunned Amina the most was when Adora said, "He told me he's ending things with his cousin. He said it's been a long time coming, that they were only staying together out of family duty." Amina felt like someone had poured cold water over her. Cousin? That's what he told her she was. After 7 years of marriage? After building a home and life together? She didn't say a word. She didn't scream. She just thanked Adora for her time and said someone would arrange to return the ring. Then she hung up the phone and sat in silence again. But this silence was different. It wasn't full of heartbreak. It was full of fire. Now she knew everything. Adora wasn't the villain. She had been lied to, just like Amina. Kweku had been living 2 lives, 2 women, 2 homes, 1 big lie. And now both women knew the truth. But Amina still didn't move too fast. She still cooked dinner. She still laughed with him. But every second she spent in the same room with Kweku now felt like she was sitting beside a stranger. Every kiss felt fake. Every word from his mouth sounded like a lie. But she waited. She was patient, because she wasn't just reacting. She was preparing, quietly, carefully, like a storm building in the distance. Kweku had no idea what was coming. Amina didn't tell anyone, not her friends, not her family. She wanted the truth to hit like thunder. She wanted the whole world to see what he had done, not just to her, but to Adora and the unborn child too. And so she stayed silent. But inside, a fire had started, and when it was time, she would make sure that fire burned through every single lie he had ever told. This wasn't just a story about a woman who got hurt. It was becoming a story about a woman who rose, quietly, wisely, and with power. Amina was not going to let him walk away like nothing happened. And deep down, she knew the day she would strike was coming soon. And when it did, it would shake everything. The following weekend, Kweku was all smiles. He had just gotten a big promotion at work, and to celebrate, he decided to throw a party at their home. He invited everyone, friends, colleagues, family members, even his boss. He walked around proudly, shaking hands and laughing loudly, pretending everything in his life was perfect. Amina, still calm and quiet, helped him prepare for the party. She set the table, welcomed guests at the door, and smiled at everyone. No one could guess what was really going on inside her. She had carried the truth in her heart for a week, and now the time had come to let it all out. As the house filled with laughter and music, Amina moved through the room like everything was normal. She made sure every guest had food. She even toasted to Kweku's success when he raised his glass. But in the bedroom, just behind a closed door, sat the suitcase, the same one he brought from Accra. And inside it, the velvet box and the sonogram, the secrets he thought he had hidden. Amina had placed them exactly where they had been. She wanted him to feel safe, to believe that he had fooled her completely, because the truth was more powerful when it arrived by surprise. When the party was in full swing and everyone had eaten, laughed, and settled down, Amina stood up slowly. Her voice was calm but firm. She held the suitcase in one hand and looked directly at Kweku, who stood near the front with his glass still in hand. "Since we're all here," she said, her voice carrying through the room, "I think it's the perfect time to show you what Kweku brought back from his last trip." People turned their heads, confused. Some chuckled, thinking it was part of the celebration. Kweku's smile froze. He watched her, unsure of what she meant. Amina placed the suitcase gently on the table in front of everyone and slowly unzipped it. The room quieted. She reached in and pulled out the small velvet box. Then, with steady hands, she opened it and held it high for everyone to see. "This," she said, "is a ring, but not for me. It's for a woman named Adora, the love of his real life, according to this engraving." Gasps filled the room. People started whispering. Kweku's face turned pale, but Amina wasn't finished. She then pulled out the folded paper, the sonogram, and held it up. "And this," she said, "is a sonogram of his child with another woman, a woman he has been promising marriage to, while calling me his cousin." There was a pause, and then complete silence. People didn't know where to look. Some covered their mouths. Kweku's mother, who had been sitting on the couch, stared at her son with wide eyes. Then, suddenly, she fainted. A relative rushed to her side, calling her name. Kweku tried to speak. "Amina, let's talk about this." But she raised her hand and cut him off. "No, you've talked enough. You've lied enough." His boss, standing near the hallway, looked shocked. He didn't say a word. He simply turned around and walked out of the house. Other guests followed. Some stayed seated, frozen in place, trying to understand what they had just witnessed. Amina stood tall in the center of the storm, calm and unshaken. Kweku stood there, stunned. For once, he had nothing to say. No excuses, no charm, no lies could save him now. His secrets, hidden so carefully, had just been exposed in front of the very people who had respected and admired him. His image, the perfect husband, the successful man, the proud son, had been shattered in seconds. And it wasn't by accident. It was Amina's choice, her moment. She looked at everyone still in the room and said, "I spent 7 years building a home with this man. I gave him love, loyalty, and support. And this is how he repaid me. With lies, with betrayal, with a child and a woman I never knew about." Her voice never shook, her hands never trembled, because she had cried all her tears in private. Now she was done being quiet. The celebration was over, but not for Kweku, for Amina. This was not just the end of their marriage. This was the beginning of her freedom. She packed away the ring and sonogram, zipped up the suitcase, and walked out of the room, leaving behind the wreckage of Kweku's lies. What he had built with deception came crashing down in front of everyone he cared about, and he could only stand there, watching it all collapse. In that moment, Amina wasn't just the woman he betrayed. She was the one who finally told the truth, and did it in a way no one would ever forget. Amina wasn't the kind of woman to stop halfway. She had been silent for too long, holding in pain and betrayal. But now that the truth was out, she was determined to finish what she had started. After exposing Kweku in front of family and friends, she didn't waste a single minute. The very next morning, while Kweku stayed in bed pretending nothing had happened, Amina was already on her laptop. She carefully organized all the evidence, the photos of the velvet box, the sonogram with his name, screenshots of her conversation with Adora, and a full written report of what he had done. Then, she sent it all to the Human Resources Department of Kweku's firm in Kampala. She knew the company had very strict rules for their senior executives. Honesty about family status was part of their professional code. Kweku had always bragged about it, never knowing that one day it would be used against him. Amina didn't have to wait long. Within 48 hours, she received a quiet message from someone in the HR team. Kweku had been suspended from duty while an investigation began. Word spread fast in the company. People who used to admire him now avoided his calls. The man who once walked into meetings with confidence now sat alone, his phone silent, his inbox empty. And as if that wasn't enough, Adora found out everything too. Amina had messaged her privately and told her the full truth, not with anger, but with honesty. Adora was shocked, embarrassed, and furious. She had believed every word Kweku told her. He had promised her love, a home, a future, and all along, he was lying to her while living a full marriage with another woman. Without a second thought, Adora ended the relationship. She blocked him everywhere and made it clear she wanted nothing to do with him again. She told her friends, her family, and anyone who had met him. The shame followed Kweku like a shadow. Kweku tried to reach out to Amina, first with soft words, then with begging, and finally with anger. But Amina never answered his calls. She had cried her last tear for him. Instead, she met with a lawyer and filed for divorce. She knew her rights. After 7 years of marriage and building a life together, she was entitled to half of everything they had. The house, the car, the accounts, and the business investments she had helped him manage. He tried to argue, tried to say she didn't deserve it, but the evidence was against him, and so was the law. The divorce case moved fast. The judge saw the proof, the lies, the betrayal, the emotional harm, and sided with Amina. She got her full share, half of everything, and with it, she walked away without looking back. Kweku, the man who once had it all, was now left with broken pieces of a life built on lies. His job, suspended. His reputation, damaged. His second relationship, gone. And the woman he thought would never leave, stronger than ever. Amina, on the other hand, began rebuilding, not just her life, but herself. She didn't just walk away with money and justice. She walked away with wisdom, courage, and a new purpose. She had faced the worst kind of betrayal and had turned it into power. While Kweku was hiding from calls and whispers in the town, Amina was planning her next chapter. She knew this story was no longer about heartbreak. It was about rising and never looking back. 1 year later, Amina was no longer just a woman who had been betrayed. She was a woman who had rebuilt her life from the ashes. With strength, clarity, and purpose, She launched her own law consultancy called Velvet Box Legal. The name came from the small velvet box that once broke her heart and later became the start of her power. Her firm focused on helping women who had faced betrayal, lies, and financial abuse. Women who, just like her, had been silenced, hurt, and left with nothing. Amina gave them something they had lost: hope, support, and justice. To launch her firm, she shared her full story in a heartfelt video. Sitting calmly in front of a simple background, she spoke openly and softly, not with bitterness, but with courage. Her words hit deep. Sometimes the truth doesn't hide in conversations, she said. It hides in suitcases. The video spread like fire. Within days, it had been viewed by millions. Women from across the country, and even other parts of Africa, reached out to her, thanking her for speaking up and giving them strength. Meanwhile, Kweku tried to rebuild his life, but the damage had been done. In a small town, people don't forget. His name was no longer followed by praise, but by whispers, and every whisper reminded him of the truth he tried to hide, the truth Amina had pulled out of a suitcase and turned into power.